Hello, friends. We are in a time of tremendous transition. Certainly, it is the transition from spring to summer. It is also in our congregational life a transition in ministerial leadership. And in our wider communities, it's a transition back into our social gatherings. As more and more of us are vaccinated, each at our own pace and speed, more and more people are able to stop masking, to be together inside and outside, to maintain less distance, and to rediscover how to be close to one another without great risk to our health. But how do we do this? Not everybody has been vaccinated. And in fact, there are a few people who will not be able to be safely vaccinated in the future, and then there are others who might choose, for their own reasons, not to be vaccinated. So how do we navigate this? And we know that our youngest children can't even be vaccinated yet. How do we get through this time of not knowing how to be fully safe with each other? I want to suggest that we all take a page from the lessons taught by sex educators who teach us about asking for consent. So I've talked to somebody who makes a living of that work and asked them to help me understand how some of the principles of consent conversations can apply to this moment in our unmasking, in our partial vaccination, in our return to embodied gatherings. And this is what they taught me. They said there are two significant principles of consent conversations that we want to remember. The first is that consent is never given for all of time. It is not a one-time thing to ask a person for their consent. And so we just get used to asking each time and knowing that any time a person might change or withdraw their consent. And the second is that the person responsible for this is not just the person who needs to say no, but both parties are responsible for asking one another. If I want to take off my mask with you, I need to ask you before I do. And you, if you want to take your mask off with me, need to ask me, is this okay? Is it okay if we come closer than 6 feet? Is it okay if I hug you? These are all parts of consent conversations, and it's not just the person who wants or needs to say no who carries the burden for them. There are 5 principles of consent conversations that can be remembered with the acronym, the word fries, like French fries. And so here they are. The first one is F. Consent must be freely given. I can't guilt trip you into giving me consent or coerce you in any way. If I want to ask you, can we get closer? I want to indicate that it is okay if you say no, because I want your consent to be freely given. That's the first one. The second one is it must be reversible. And this goes back to the idea that consent is never a one-time thing for all time. Consent must be reversible. So if at a certain time I have given consent for something, I have to be able to retract it. Maybe I said, yes, it's okay for us to unmask, and then all of a sudden I started feeling naked or exposed or at risk. And then I need to be able to say, you know what, I said that before, but right now I got to put this back on. The third is that consent must be informed. So if I ask you if we can take our masks off, I might need to be able to tell you whether or not I've been vaccinated. And I certainly need to tell you if I've had any symptoms of COVID. It must be informed consent. So both parties need to be able to do that. The fourth is that it must be enthusiastic. So if I ask you, can we take our masks off and talk face to face without them? And you say to me, well, I'm not quite sure. That's not enthusiastic. I want you to say, yeah, let's remove our masks. Or, no, I'm really not comfortable with that. Enthusiastic. And then the last one starts with an S, from the word fries, S. It must be specific. So I don't want to just say, hey, can we just give up on all COVID precautions and then assume that I can come in and hug you? No. I ask, can we remove masks? Can we stand shoulder to shoulder without 6 feet of distance? Do you mind if I hug you? And at each of those specific requests, know that it's okay to say no. You don't even have to explain it. This is what consent conversations are made of. It will take some time to get used to having them regularly. But the more we have these conversations, friends, the more we will not only be becoming adept at naming our own needs, but we will become more adept at understanding that others' needs might not be the same as our own. That is a way of saying we will become better at seeing one another, at listening to one another, at asking, what do you need in this moment to have this conversation with me? Here's what I need. Can we negotiate, navigate this together? I think this is not only a practice that will serve us well in this time of transition in the pandemic. I think it's a practice that will serve us well as we strive to see one another in all our differences and fullness, respectfully, openly, honoring of each of us, and then finding a way to be together with all of us. That is my hope for this time of transition in the pandemic. Take good care, friends. This will be the last of my Thursday messages to you. But as KP mentioned earlier this week, he and I will be alternating weekly ministerial messages starting next week. And those will be distributed early on in each week. So I'll see you again. And I look forward to seeing you in person and having a consent conversation with you, as I do. Take good care. Be well.